an emotional disease, and carry a mental diagnosis, or you have a physical disease like pneumonia, cancer, those types of things. We are, we as addicts, guess what? Will you check this or something? We get both sides. We get the mental obsession and the physical addiction part, and then it's actually threefold, and then there's a spiritual malady. So, what I want to talk about is the mental obsession. If you were to go to a clinician, a psychiatrist, a LPC, a clinician that could diagnose you, and you started talking about that mental obsession. Now, if they didn't know, if they wasn't addiction specialists and maybe didn't know a lot about addiction, they would automatically, when you start talking about that obsession, and the definition that I give for obsession is an idea that overcomes all other ideas. And when you're in it, that's all you can think about. So if you were to go and report that to a clinician that does it, like I said, that's not really trained in addictions, how they will diagnose you is with OCD. And then when people have OCD, what they do is have compulsive behavior. It's followed by compulsive behavior, a lot of hand washing, a lot of clicking the light switch, different things, excessive cleaning. So with addictions, like I said, we get twofold. We have that mental obsession, and that is what starts first, I think. Now, the physical part is about the brain. 60% of alcoholics, we know this, I think it's more, at least 60% of people who have any form of addiction, at least 60% of them come out of addictive homes where there's alcoholism or drug addiction. We always go back 3 generations here because a lot of times if there's, let's say grandpa's a bad old alcoholic, and this daughter decided, or son could decide, I am not going to be alcoholic, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not raising my kids like that. So they go the other extreme, and they can get into church, which is a great place to go, and they can become very religious and really believe in God, or very spiritual, and they never take a drink of alcohol. Alcohol never crosses their lips. Heaven forbid if they ever did. So you go down that 3rd generation. So we get people in a lot of times that are particularly eating disorders, and we can see this with alcoholics, but a lot with eating disorders. When we do an assessment, no addiction anywhere, no mom and dad, no addiction. And somehow, a lot of times, they will leave off about grandpa until we keep kind of pushing it. But at first, it's like, there's no addiction here, fix the kid. So once we see and help the family see that when they own that grandpa was suffered from severe, what do we call it, AUD today? Help me out, Bradley. We call it, anyway, alcohol.
Use disorder?
Yes, thanks. We don't call it alcoholism anymore. I call it alcoholism, but anyway, So, and a lot of your eating disorder people, now this is me, and not everyone agrees with me in the field. you know, but I've lived it. I've seen it, you know, in children, and I've had the disease myself. In that, okay, so addiction is about the brain chemistry. You either have the brain of an addict or you don't. It's that simple. You either have it or you don't. Now, it may lie dormant for years if you don't use a substance that triggers it, like the drug alcohol. But if you have a sugar sensitivity, that can trigger that brain chemistry. Now, the mental obsession, always, and I'm going to say always, we're taught not to say always, but I want to say it anyway. The mental obsession is, like I said, that idea that overcomes all other ideas. And we get obsessed with maybe, you know, someone's 30 days sober, 60 days sober, 60 years sober. It doesn't matter. If that thought to drink comes in the mind, or the thought to use, that's when it starts. And it will, you know, now we're taught in the program, when those thoughts come here, pick up that telephone and call someone, and it will break that it'll break it like that mental obsession. But it's about thinking about it. All right, like the food. You know, I would go, you know, early on when I weighed almost 300 pounds, I'd go on every diet you can imagine. And but then I'd have maybe some cookies in the cookie jar for the kids. Or I would have a freezer full of little cookie things to send to for their lunch. And I had my husband put a lock on the freezer. Well, I found that, I figured out how to get into that freezer, because I would get into the mental obsession of sugar, wanting, and for me, it didn't have to be a specific thing, but some people it's specific. It was sugar, high carbs, crisp, salty. I've never known anyone yet, I keep waiting, I've never known anyone yet to get addicted to broccoli, green beans, asparagus, you know. We don't. But it's those high carb things. And so the addiction, this is why you can have the mental obsession and not relapse. Because you think about it, and if you don't take the action to put whatever the substance is into your body, you have not completed the twofold disease, you know. And once, see, the craving, people will say, when they have the mental obsession, they'll say, I'm craving sugar, or I'm craving this. No, you don't. You got that mental obsession. The craving is not set up until the substance is put into the body. If you have the substance, the body, the brain of an addict, one cookie calls for 2 to 3 or 4, or one drink calls for, you know, for more. Now we can fool ourselves and we can say, I'm going to have one drink. And you might have one drink that night. But then that, Jeff is just laughing. And then that mental obsession is there. Your friends that you're having dinner with, and you all have one drink, maybe 2 drinks, and that's it. But that craving has been kicked in. And so an alcoholic, they may not drink that night when they get home, more than likely they will, or they may not drink the next day, or a week, or a month. But eventually, they will drink. I'll give you an example, and my husband always said I could talk about him all I wanted, just not to forget to sober him up. And when he passed away, he had 32 years of sobriety in AA. So he was what we called a periodic alcoholic. When he drank one drink, it was like he ordered up a drunk. One, he could not drink like anyone socially. And he would drink and have that drunk, and it'd be 3 or 4 days. And then he wouldn't drink again, maybe for 3 months. And then he would say, see, I told you I wasn't an alcoholic. Now, what he didn't report until he got sober, that 3 months that he wasn't drinking, he was white knuckling it. That mental obsession was there because, see, we remember the sense of ease and comfort that we get from any form of a substance, because what it does, and I always say, we're not a bunch of idiots. If we didn't get something out of using a substance, we would give it up. We think, oh, well, I don't do that anymore. It's too expensive, takes up too much of my time. It fogs my mind. It makes me fat. It makes me skip, whatever. We'd give it up. But addicts hang in there. All right, so it's 2 separate things. Do you get it, Cecile? It's 2 separate things. That mental obsession. And people can have, they can think about, right now, everyone, you go on the Facebook or whatever, and there are 1,000 recipes that people are putting together for the Super Bowl. Everyone will partake in something. So those people are thinking about all that good stuff they're going to cook and they're going to eat and they can do that. One day they'll do it, but they'll have those dips there and whatever chips or whatever they have. You can usually tell the eaters or the drinkers. A non-drinker will, maybe go get a cold beer. They'll go back to the game and they'll get so involved in the game they forget to drink their beer, and it will be hot, and then they'll just pour it out. That's a non-drinker. Why waste good booze? And same with a normal eater. They'll see that big spread in there, and they'll go fix their plate and get them a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And every time they eat, they get all they want. They get none. Now, I'm using my husband as a guide because he was very thin. He was that tall, big around, and over 6 feet tall. He was very thin. And every time he ate a meal, he got all he wanted. And when he got full, if his plate wasn't clean, he would take his napkin and cover up his plate. And I thought, what a loss. Oh my God. And I grieved what he left on his plate. And then when he got out of sight, I'd take the napkin off and eat it. That's what I would do. So this is where that mental obsession is very tricky. In that if you don't act on the mental obsession, guess what? You'll never use. You'll never use if you don't act on it. This is where, and I said a while ago, where the program, and there's other ways to recover. I was reading a book. It's more about Buddha, but it's kind of based on, it sounds a lot like the 12 steps. It's not. It's a Buddha religion, but they recover in a circle of other people. That's what we do in AA, OA, NA, all the 12-step programs. We recover in a circle. We recover, or maybe, you know what I mean. We recover in a group, and a group is 2 people. It doesn't have to be 200 people. 2 people. When we first started OA meetings here, it would be myself and one other woman and a big book. And so by the end of the year, we had 75 people at every meeting. So it's the program of attraction. But anyway, there's that mental obsession. And when you get that going, it's like that's all you can think about. That's all you can think about. Now, what is dangerous about that for any addict, but particularly alcoholics, drug addicts, is if you listen to that mental obsession and don't do something, and that something is get on your knees and ask God to help you not take that next, that drink, listen to your mental obsession, read some program literature, go to a meeting, work the step that with a sponsor that he's working or she's working with you on, and then call a newcomer or call a sponsoree and give it away. That's how you break that mental obsession. You do something in place of it. Now, with food addiction, it is trickier. Now, I'm going to be talking out of both sides of my mouth in that unless you have, and only you can decide this, there is really no test, you can do it, and there's not for alcoholism either or drug addiction. You can do every psychosocial, you can answer every question, you can do this, do that, and do this, and do something else. And professionals say, yeah, you are so-and-so. But it doesn't matter what they say. What matters is what you internalize and you own. They can tell you till hell freezes over, you have an eating disorder that needs to be treated. And you can walk out that door with the head knowledge, but you walk out there and you go continue to practice your eating disorder, or you can continue to practice, the addiction. So the only person that can diagnose you is you. You've got to accept the fact, I have this deal, and I can't drink like a normal person. I can't eat like a normal person. Now, I will tell you, the longer if you're in recovery from an eating disorder, the more days you get, the more years you get, the longer you're in it, the food will take its proper place. But I want to tell you, it is a tricky deal, because if, I'm going to use myself as an example. I've had 38 years of recovery in September the 19th. And so for about the first 25 years, I didn't eat sugar. I did not eat a bite of sugar, did not eat sugar. And then we were hearing, I was going to, for training for eating disorder conferences and all, kept hearing there is no bad food. You can eat anything that's part of your eating disorder. If you eat abstinent, if you cut out anything, that's your eating disorder. I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And so I remember being down in Houston, and I'm not going to tell you her name. She's pretty famous, and she is good at what she does. She teaches people to eat everything, any and everything they want. If it works for them, go for it. But I followed her advice. She had this, I keep doing this, because she had this huge long table, and it had it covered with every kind of food you can imagine. And snack food, and cookies, and cakes, and candy, and hard candy, soft candy, and then vegetables, and whatever. You could eat anything on there that you wanted. So I thought, well, okay, I've been, clean long enough. I bet I could eat just one. Well, I can't, and so I got off it. I ate it for a little while. I ate some sugar for a little while. And then I thought, this is not good for me. And I'll tell you why it's not good for me. Look at these arthritic hands. Sugar does not do well in my body. I have an allergy to it. And it does set up that mental obsession for wanting more. And then when I eat one, I want two, or three, or four, or 20, I want more. That's how you describe, or how a lot of us describe addiction is, the disease of more. Give me more, give me more, give me more. Okay, so I got off of sugar. And I'm 81 years old, and I thought, well, what if I die and get to heaven and God said, well, you could have been eating some sugar this last, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, however, you could have been eating a little bit of sugar. So during the holidays, I ate some sugar stuff. And what that did is that triggered, I wanted more sugar stuff. And then what that triggered is I have to offset it with a little something salty with a little bit of crunch. So consequently, and I've always been pretty honest about what I do. And what the consequence is, I've gained about 7 pounds over the holidays, and I guess I've lost 3 of them, and I'll get back down. But I'll tell you, at 81, it's a lot harder to lose it. It is a lot harder to lose it. And the disease is not about, losing and gaining and all that. And, I'd like to tell you that you're going to get completely well with an eating disorder and never have a food thought, or you'll never have a food about the scale. See, I can get that mental obsession going with the scale, and I have to watch it now because, I want to go in there and weigh. Have I gone down? Have I not gone? That's an eating disorder, folks. And I know how to treat it, and I am treating it. I've talked about it. I'm back on track, and then I have to watch. There is not an anorexic bone in my body, but in my mind, in that mental obsession, I get to thinking, well, I could just restrict, or I could just fast for a week, well, maybe 5 days, well, maybe 3 days, well, maybe 24 hours. That's the mental obsession that drives us nuts. So I'm back on track. I'm not relapsed, this is where, and I love Overeaters Anonymous. I love it. But in OA, they would say I was in relapse. Well, you need to reestablish. Well, I'm not going to reestablish. I'm not. I ate the stuff. I realized what I did. I'm suffering the consequences, and I'm back on track. So food addiction is different. It is different than alcohol and drugs. And I've seen so many people in Overeaters Anonymous get some good time in the program. What I mean by good time, 3 or 4 months, 6 months, a year. And then they will have a 1 slip day. And then their sponsor will encourage them to go back, reestablish, pick up a chip. And I don't believe in that. I do not believe in that. And I used to believe in every bit of it. I don't today. And I'm maintaining about 160 pound weight loss minus 4 pounds now because I've gained that few pounds. So, all right. I want to tell you a little bit about this. The things that, and I looked this up, and for dietitians across the board, this is the things that they say can be the most addictive to people. And I will tell you, there is an addiction. We can get addicted to food, certain foods, but each person has to figure that out. And, we did a 6-day intensive. They brought the clients in and all that. I think it was for CBS Nightline or Dateline or whatever it was, and it's still, you can still get it. But anyway, after we filmed that, before they brought it out, they called one day and wanted to know, and I had read about this research that they were doing up in Oregon at the Oregon University. And they asked me if they were testing all kinds of drugs. And they asked me if I would come up and participate as far as sugar. And at that time, I had many, many years of being off of sugar, many years. And I thought, no problem, I'll go up there. So I went up there, and what they did was an MRI on my brain. And yes, Bradley, I do have a brain, and they tested it. They really found it. So
don't start. Don't start. I'm here being quiet.
I know you're being a good boy this morning. So what they did, they put me in there, and some of you have seen the tape and you've heard this, but anyway, I think it bears to repeat. They put me in there, and the scientists said, now when the medical people got me in there, they said there'd be two little hoses, little tubes right over my mouth. And in one of them, they would drop about 2 or 3 drops of water, the purest water that they could find. Drop it in my mouth, and then run that machine. And then, I did not know this till I got up there. Then they would drip. They would show me, they showed the picture of the frosted glass of ice water, drip the water in my mouth. Then they would show me a frosted glass of chocolate milkshake, and then drop about 2 or 3 drops of chocolate milkshake in my mouth, and run the machine. And I believe it took about 80 minutes. It was a long test. And I kept, by the end of that, and I'd been off of sugar for years, and by the end of that, I was sucking on that little tube where that that milkshake was coming out. I was going, mwah, mwah, trying to get more. And when they got me out and they stood me up, I almost fainted. I was sick as a dog. I got sick at my stomach. I had an awful reaction. And so in telling this, why do I think that over Christmas I could eat sweets? I have a forgetter. But anyway, I guess I'm repeating this more for me than for y'all. And so, TV is they wanted to wait until they gave me the results of it until they brought the show out. So the scientist was on there and the journalist was on there, and they showed a picture of my brain. And they first showed a picture of a normal brain, and that normal brain just had 2 or 3 little green spots on it. Now, they had tested cocaine addicts, meth addicts, alcoholics, prescription drugs, every drug you can imagine. And then they tested me. And so when they put a picture of my brain up there, it was covered with activity. And the journalist laughed, and she said, well, it looks like a Roman candle has gone off in Tenny's brain. And what the scientist said is she had more activity in her brain on sugar than the cocaine addicts had. That's how powerful sugar can be. And I ate a little bit of it over Christmas. So I'm doing this more for me today than for you, so y'all just have to listen. But I'm back on track, no sugar for many right now. Alrighty, so the things that we know can be the most addictive because it's the combination. And when you get processed foods, I'll tell you, we have got a very smart food industry. They fix that processed food. They put artificial chemicals in that that are addictive so they can hook us. Do you know what any of you know the number one most addictive food on the market today when you buy a commercial? Anybody have an idea what's the number one most addictive?
Potato chips. Potato chips?
That's third.
Soft drinks.
Huh?
Soft drinks like Coca-Cola, Pepsi.
No, pizza. Pizza is number one. Think about it. You know, because of all, and they do that so you'll keep coming back. Keep coming back. All right, pizza, chocolate, and potato chips, cookies of any sort. Now, and the reason of cookies because it's more condensed than something that like I don't know. I'm not gonna go into all that, but cookies, then ice cream, and then French fries, and some of these large corporations. You think you're eating potatoes. You are. I mean, they've seen a potato somewhere down the line before they got to, the drive-in window. But what they put in there, they put in different types. And this is not me in my list. This is a group of dietitians and scientists that have done this. But it's a very addictive substance that they add to it. And then I don't even want to say this after French fries. I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's cheeseburgers. I don't want to say cheeseburgers because that's one of my favorite foods of all food ever in the whole entire world is a cheeseburger. Now, I'll tell you what. I can eat, I don't know, reward myself myself, but about once a month, maybe once every 2 months, I will eat a cheeseburger, a small cheeseburger. I want everything on it, and then I'm done. I'm done or I'll make healthy hamburgers. I can make a good hamburger. I used to work at a hamburger joint. That's when I decided I'd go back to school because I always felt like a hamburger when I'd leave there. But anyway, I can make a powerful, good hamburger, but it still doesn't taste quite like those greasy hamburgers that you drive up and get them out of the window. And it's not McDonald's. I do not like McDonald's, but excuse me, McDonald's, I don't. So anyway, I hope that gives, the audience that I'm talking to is that y'all have what they called these dietitians call that industrial formulation. Industrial formulation. And that is what they put in certain foods to get us more addicted to them. All right, so I want to tell you, and I want you to hear, this is what I believe, and this is, I've worked with eating disorders for years, and I have said it over and over. Not everyone, there's not many people in the field that believe this, but I do. They have finally come out with a diagnosis for binge eating. And so that is a bona fide diagnosis of binge eating. So your compulsive overeater is someone, and they can be within normal weight and be a compulsive overeater because they will eat, a compulsive overeater will have an eating day. They'll eat anything they want for a day. They'll eat compulsively and then fast 2 or 3 days. But still, it's that hand to mouth, that getting something in. And what they get, alcoholics, when we drink the drug alcohol, it goes down, it burns a little bit, but when it comes down here, we get that sense of ease and comfort. You alcoholics, do y'all agree or disagree? You get that sense of ease and confidence like that. That's the same sensation, same feelings that compulsive overeaters get. That feeling of, and then we go back for more because the doesn't last long. And so that is the addiction part. It does for us what it doesn't do for other people. And then you get on that other side, the anorexia. And anorexia is a psychiatric disease. It has the highest death rate of any of the psychiatric diagnoses, although right now It's second place to opiates. That's taken its place. It's number one, and now anorexia for a psychiatric diagnosis. So, what do they get addicted to? You're, and this is my interpretation, folks. I've worked with a lot of them, so just listen. An anorexic is much like your street drug addict, not your prescription drug addict. An anorexic, every time a street drug addict goes out to get drugs, where they have to go is illegal. The people that they have to deal with are criminals. It's unsafe. It is, what I'm talking about, these hardcores, they don't go buy them in the office. They don't go, exchange them among friends. I'm talking about your hardcore street drug addicts. They put their life on the line every day, and they're willing to do that. Now, that's the same thrill that an anorexic gets from the starvation. They are willing to put their life on the line for that feeling of emptiness. Now, what an anorexic gets addicted to really is their own chemicals, their own dopamine. They have, we all have chemicals in our brains. And when you starve, those chemicals kick in and they get a high off of the chemicals. That's why anorexics stay with it, because they can feel 20 feet tall and bulletproof like a street drug addict. And they love that living on the razor's edge. And they'll say things like, I want to eat tomorrow. I could stop this anytime I wanted to. And then they don't usually want to. And then they may start refeeding for a while, and then if they gain 1 point a pound, they freak out and go nuts on us. The refeeding process for an anorexic is very slow. That's why most of your anorexics really need to be in some form of inpatient treatment for 6, or not inpatient. They need some inpatient, definitely. But they need a refeeding program, and that's what we're offering here now, is people can come after they've been in primary care. They can come to us for a refeeding process. I've always wanted to do this and to see if we could change the results, the end results of anorexia, where they can be refed here for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it takes, to get them up within a normal weight range. And if we could get them that long, the recovery rate would shoot sky high. We don't get that. So, but that's what we're doing. And a lot of your chronic alcoholics and a lot of your chronic drug addicts, if they could go to treatment somewhere else and then come here and practice being sober 3 months, 6 months, a year, if they're chronic, they need more time. Anyway, I've gone to preaching here. So what an anorexic is much like your street drug addict. Your compulsive overeater is much like your alcoholic. We all go for that sense of ease and comfort. And the sense of ease and comfort that an anorexic has is being thin. They love the thinness. They love the feel of their body, and it's competition like you wouldn't believe. You think these football players are going to be in competition Sunday? You get 2 or 3 or 4 anorexics in a treatment program, there is more competition than you can imagine. So then we have the bulimics, and there's about 7 different forms of eating disorders, but I want to give you the main 3. So what does a bulimic get? And I'm a recovering bulimic. Guess what? We get 2 hits. We get the hit of, we have to eat massive amount. I mean, we eat massive amount. We don't have to, but we eat a lot of food in a short period of time. And we get that sense of ease and comfort. But immediately that brain kicks in and says, oh my God, you're going to gain weight. So we have to find a way to get rid of it. So the purging bulimic gets over that porcelain throne, that commode, and they purge it out. Now, the minute you get it purged out, whether it's through laxatives, over exercise, or purging, once you get the calories out, you get that sense of ease and comfort. You get a release. That's what the bulimic gets addicted to, is that release. It's like, thank you, God. And then you look around and see the mess you made, the money you've spent. And so the eating disorders, I believe, go through the same addiction cycle as any other addiction. And it's twofold. You start with that mental obsession. You get to thinking about, the anorexic gets to thinking about, well, if I eat one bite of that protein and put the other up my sleeve, they'll never know it. And they get a high off of getting away with that. Pulling the film over the staff's eyes. They think the staff is stupid, and they just leave out of there frisky. Well, I ate all of my food, and they're liars. All addicts are liars when we're in the disease. We're a bunch of liars. Oh, I've just gone way off beam this morning, but that's that. They get mentally obsessed with withholding food from their body. They get mentally obsessed with this, how much skin they can pick up. They get mentally obsessed, and this is across the board with eating disorders, the scales. And then, I don't know where I was going with that, but the addiction does not set in until we do the behavior, until we either, with anorexics, when they withhold the food, that's when our job kicks in, is when an anorexic starts feeding themselves. You better have you some good staff on board, because it's in the feeding process that the feelings come up. And I have been beat up twice in this, when I've, for 45 years that I've been in this business. And I've worked with Vietnam vets and a hitman from the mafia. Only 2 times that I've ever been hit have been by 70-pound anorexics. And I thank God that it wasn't both of them at the same time, or I wouldn't be here. They have so much rage on the inside. And when they start that refeeding, that's when the feelings come up, and that's usually rage comes up. And that's, if you're bulimic, that mental obsession kicks in with the food, wanting to eat all of the food. They get the sense of ease of comfort when they take the food in, and then the release. So same with the compulsive overeaters. So if you only practiced that mental obsession and stopped there and didn't use the substance, you are on your way to recovery. Now, I will tell you, the only thing that I've ever known that will help this mental obsession is having a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. This is a spiritual problem, folks. And that is the only thing that I have ever found. No doctor, no pill, nothing can stop that mental obsession except having a complete psychic change that is brought about by a spiritual experience. And that was given to us by a little psychiatrist in Switzerland many, many years ago. All right, that's what I have. I've got some good addicts on here. Y'all talk. Cecile, did I answer your question? Did I over-answer it? Are you sorry you asked a question?
No, it's, thank you so much, Tinny. It's